Hey, Cookster here, and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to show repairing the bottom of this fender. It had been crushed or driven up or something. I don't know how my dad did it. I don't even remember when it happened. But basically there was a big crease, big ripple put in the panel. When the dent dented and pushed up, it put a big crease in here. It also had cracked from just years of stress vibration. So there was a crack in the bottom flange, cracked all the way across, and where one of the spot welds broke loose. So I repaired this. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to take good pictures of the damage before I started. I was about an hour into the repair when I thought about, you know what, this is an actual dent, and I don't do much dent repair on my channel, even though I'm an old body man. Most of what I do is rust repair on this channel. Most of what I do on this channel is rust repair, patch panels, that kind of stuff. I don't do much collision repair. And even though this is a small dent, relatively, I still had to use a lot of my collision repair techniques to fix it. So I went ahead and started shooting the video. It's like I said, about an hour in. But anyway, we're going to use body man techniques. We're going to use a snatch hammer, or some people call them a jerk bar, which a lot of people shy away from, or are scared of, or don't like. But bear with me, watch the video, you'll learn how I use it, and how I believe it. It's fine. It's a tool in your arsenal that you sometimes have to use. This panel has a reinforcement bar back here. You cannot get access back there to hammer from the backside. And there's been many cars repaired on the road, thousands, millions, hell, millions, that you can't get to the interior, so that's why they have to use snatch bars. Well, back in my day, we used a snatch bar, and then the stud gun came along. Now, I used the stud gun a little bit towards the end of my career before I moved on to doing something else. But I didn't use one a lot. But I know about them, and they do work, and they're good tools. Again, it's another tool in your arsenal. So, snatch bar, and then a thing that we used to call a booger hook. It's a hook. What its proper name is, I don't know. Bought these in a pack of 3 from Snap-on Man in long time ago. You can probably still buy these. These are great little tools too, and I'll show you in the video how I use these. I also had to break out the torch. This crease was in here bad enough that I couldn't get it to move just with bare force alone. I had to use some heat. So a lot of the disciplines that you use, or techniques you use for doing collision repair, I use to fix this fender. It's fixed, it's straight, it's not metal finished, and I keep saying I'm not metal finishing. Most of what I do is not metal finishing. I try to get it as straight as I can, but I'm not metal finishing. This will require a skim coat of filler. As I've said all along, I'm a body man, or I'm an old body man, literally. There's nothing wrong with using body filler if you use it right. Use good filler. Use it right. Don't put it on an inch deep. All the preparation. Do it right. As I said before, in this fender, there was a couple of repairs in this fender that I made 40 years ago that I just ground out here recently. They never turned loose, never cracked, never rusted, never popped, none of that. So if you do it right, repairs will last. Believe it, as opposed to what a lot of people will tell you. There's a lot of bad bodywork out there, and I know that. I've seen it. We used to have guys we call butchers. We had one we called Abdullah the Butcher. Which if you were wrestling, if any of you are wrestling fans, you know who that wrestler was. Well, we had a body man I worked with, and his name was Abdullah the Butcher, because he was a flat out, straight up butcher. So I hadn't thought about that guy in 30 plus years. But anyway, let's get on to the video. So I'm going to show you how I fix this. So stick around. Let's go. So the dent is right here. There's a crease. Now there's a crease right here I put in there last night when I cut the bottom of the fender. I had to cut the fender in half because the front corner was pushed in, and I got to pull it back out, and to give me some room to push and pull. Plus the spot weld here is broke. So I just went ahead and cut it loose. But the dent I'm fixing is right here. And if you're familiar with these fenders, there is the support piece right here in the back. So I have no access to get back in here and tap this dent out from the from the backside. And I'm sure a lot of you, especially you guys that are older like me and that have been around cars for a long time, you're familiar with a snatch bar. That's a snatch bar, where you have a stud screwed in out here, and you drill a hole in the metal, and then you screw the stud in, and you jerk it out, snatch it out. Those things kind of lost favor back in maybe the 90s, something. When the stud gun came out, where you weld a stud on the panel, you snatch it back out and you break the stud off. These, you have to drill a hole in the panel, and most guys, including me, back in the day, you drilled a hole in the panel like I did here. You snatched your dent out. You knocked these down a little bit so they're a little bit under the surface, and you put body filler right over it. Nothing wrong with that. Hell, I ground the dent out right here that I fixed 40 years ago. That it was fixed. It was done that way, and I ground all the filler out and welded the holes up. So it works. And what I started doing later on in my career was welding the holes back up. It's not everybody did that. It's just something I started doing because I didn't like all the holes, being sticking through. When I learned that body filler, is porous and will soak moisture, a lot of the repairs done like these, the filler will soak moisture and over the years turn loose. As I said, this repair here lasted 40 years. Never did do that. And that's a combination of, I always try to do really good work, and maybe I was a bit lucky and all that. But anyway, I digress. Those of you that aren't familiar with collision repair, which I'm guessing is probably most of you, don't really realize, damn it, now I need my eraser. There it is. Don't really realize how dents act in metal unless you work metal. As I said, metal shaping is similar, but it's not the same. So what happens here's a panel, door panel for example, or some kind of panel. When you dent a panel, let's say a panel gets dented. Now, I'm not talking about walking up to it and hitting it with a hammer. I'm talking about, in a wreck. A hammer will do it too, but say we got a wreck here and this panel here gets dented. What happens, the metal gets sunk in right here, and generally it will kind of pooch out on the edge. Depending on how bad the collision is. I mean, a small little dent won't do that, but the bigger stuff, a lot of times it'll pooch out on the edges. So what happens is when you're trying to fix this panel, straight is right here. Well, you got a low spot here, and you got a big pooched up spot here on each side. Well, that's what I've got on that fender. That fender comes down and turns over at the bottom. So here's the bottom of the fender right here. Here's the lip. It got bent right here, and when it did, it made a dent here, but it also pooched a big ridge on it right there on both sides. And that's just how metal works. It just does that. It's not really anything you can explain away. It's just how it works. So what I have to do here, I have to raise this area. Here's the crease I was talking about. So I have to raise this area here up, but the high spot that it created is right here. This ridge, this has got to be knocked down. Now the one right here is not that pronounced. It's a little bit, but it's not that much. But this one right here is pretty severe. And then of course, then the bottom is rusted away and bent, so that's not helping either. So I've got a very pronounced, you can even see this high spot right here. I got a very pronounced ridge all the way through here. I've got to work down before I can put filler on it. So when I go to fix this dent right here, what I want to do, here's my ideal surface. I want to raise that dent right here till it's just lower the surface. Ideally 32nd, 16th, as close as you can get it without being perfectly in shape, because you're still going to have wrinkles and bends and hammer marks and stuff in here. And then the spot here that was high, you want to bring it down till it's just under the surface as well. So basically your whole dent, I'm exaggerating here, basically your whole dent is under the surface, and you can fill all this in with body filler. Now that's how body filler fills a dent. And then of course you feather edge out here on the edge, which we talked about feather edging in other videos. So that's the basic, quick and dirty nutshell of kind of how dent repair works. It's probably not explained very well, but I think most of you will kind of get the idea. So what I got to do here, and we used to call these booger hooks. They're hooks, obviously, with a handle that have hooks at the end. They fit in an 1/8 inch hole, which I've already drilled some holes here. So now, as I said, what I want to do, I'm going to pull up, out towards the camera on this low spot crease here, and I'm going to tap down on this ridge right here and see how much I can get it to move. If you just try to tap this ridge down without, in other words, I got the high spot ridge and I got the low spot. If you just try to tap the high spot ridge down without pulling that low ridge out, you're not really doing yourself any good, because you want to pull the low spot up and push the high spot down at the same time. So anyway, let's see what we do. So as I'm pulling up with my hand on the hook, I'm tapping down, and it's going to move. It's going to move, you know, like I just said. You certainly can't probably see it, but I can definitely tell there's some moving going on here. And I'm being pretty aggressive here. I'm going to come back and finesse it when I get done. This is like, you know, when you're doing collision repair, you usually get the big stuff out first and rough it in, and then go back and finesse it down. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. Now, I have moved that a lot. This is the area here where the fender broke. See, my inner fender brace runs right here. So it runs, this piece is actually broke off the inner fender brace. So I've got, this is not low anymore though right here. It's gonna be hard to get a hammer and dolly in there. But I can do it. So let me grab my dolly. So I'm going to try to dolly right back up in here, just all the way up to the edge of that inner fender brace. I got the gloves on. I'm fixing to smash my hand up. I push this big high ridge down. I'll pull the inner fender up. So see, I still got this big low spot here, but I can't fix this until I get the bottom of the fender figured out, and I got access to back here anyway. So I feel pretty good. Let me work this a little bit. I got this spot right here I don't like. I may have to cut this. It's got a knot right there. I've got a dent right here that I can't get to. It's a small one. I've also got a low spot, a couple of low spots right here and right here. So if you haven't already figured it out, if I haven't already said it, I'm going to weld these holes back up when I'm done. So don't be sitting here, you know, cussing at me, calling me a butcher, drilling holes in my panel, and I'm going to leave them. No, I'm going to weld this back up. Is this just the way I'm using to fix the metal, to do the collision repair, dent repair? So cut me some slack. I'm going to weld these holes back up. I've also got a bunch of pinholes down here that you may not have noticed, or maybe you have. I don't weld up all these pinholes too. So there's a fair amount of work to do in the bottom of this fender. Let me do what I'm going to do now is drop that one in the floor. I'm going to just go over these lightly. That's basically kind of substituting for hammer and dolly work, because as I said, you can't get a dolly back here. This dent here next to this crease is going to have to, is right next to this crease. There's no way I can pull that out by hand. It's too strong. So we'll have to put a snatch bar in here and pull this out with a snatch bar. These little light ones right here, they'll pull right, you can pull them loose by hand. Especially when you hit them around the edge like I just did, they'll pull right back up. Yeah, the same right here. Oh, another thing I should show you. A lot of times you can put more than one hook in there and pull. So that, like, for whatever reason, if I was doing this and I wanted to pull, wanted to pull on more than one hole, I can put it here. And, I can get 2 or 3 or how many of these things in here I want to get and pull all at the same time. And sometimes that helps on certain kind of dents. And watch your hands, doing this. It'd be easy to whack your fingers if you ain't careful. Ow. That's really close. So I may weld up a few of these pinholes. I probably won't make you sit through watching me do that. And then this tab right here, figure out how I want to handle this, because you can see it's completely pulled up. I gotta weld that back and grind that and fix that. Matter of fact, if I take a pair of duck bills here, I don't want to break this off, but I can bend it up and then get in there and clean it up or whatever, which I've already sandblasted, so it's already pretty clean to start with. Alright, a couple things from this angle I want to show you. See this line right here, this arc? This is supposed to be straight. Let me grab a ruler. Okay. See the gap right there? This is supposed to be straight across here. So that's where this area here is still bent. It's still driven in. Ideally, I would be able to get back here and drive from this side and pull that, push that out from the back. But as we've been talking about, I got this inner structure in here. I could drill a row of holes here and a snatch and use the booger hooks and heat this area and hammer it. That would work too. And that might actually work better than trying to use a snatch bar. Alright, I thought about it for a little bit and I decided to go ahead and use the torch method. And the biggest reason was, yes, I can cut the access hole in here in the back. But if I was going to do this repair that way, I should have just cut the hole in the back and repaired the whole thing. Not even talked about the snatch bar and all that stuff. So I'm trying to show here fixing a dent or a dent when you don't have access to the back side, and this inner fender structure here is causing that. That's why I don't have access to it. So kind of defeating the purpose of talking about fixing a dent like that if I cut the whole back out. If this fender's on the truck and you're trying to fix it, you don't want to pull the fender off, or it's a double wall panel or whatever. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and use the torch method. I have certainly done this before in the past, in my body shop working days. Collision repair, so this is nothing new. Knocking it over, that don't help. I've got it in the floor where I can work on it. If you were on the vehicle, obviously you'd be kind of upside down. Makes this a lot more difficult. But I've worked on cars on the ground upside down enough in my lifetime. If I can make it easier for me, I'm certainly going to do it. So anyway, what I'm going to do is get the torch going, and then you got to be careful with this because you're going to overheat this and it'll tear and rip and do all kind of stuff you don't want it to do. Anyway, what was I saying? It takes some finesse. You can't get in here and caveman this kind of stuff. So we're just gonna let the camera run, and I'll see if I can talk you through it here. So I'm gonna start back here at the back, or kind of towards the back, and I'm gonna heat this area in here. Try to work that down, whatever word you want to call it. You got to be careful here. This sheet metal will heat up quick, and it's thin from the rust, so you got to watch what you're doing. That definitely moves for sure. And watch your hands here, don't get burned. You know, wear gloves and all that good stuff. Be careful. I'm gonna turn this heat down a little bit. It's hot. And I am pulling up this way, you know, this way, as I'm hammering this way. That made a big difference. Huge difference. Work it a little bit more. Now I'm going to turn the heat back up because I'm impatient sometimes. Don't cool this with water. You don't want to heat shrink it if it don't need heat shrinking. Let it air cool. Alright, we still got a low spot right here. Let's see if I can do something to this out here. That's it, this is hot. Watch your hand. I can hammer in dolly right there. Needs to move a little bit more right in through here. I'm gonna drill a couple more holes right in here to give me a couple more spots to pull. Honestly, I could probably stop now, but I'm nitpicking as I tend to do. Stop it! That made a big difference right there. That helped a lot. One more pull right here on this last hole. See that smoke? It's hot. Yeah, that's a big improvement. It's not perfect, but it's way better than it was. Alright, I lightly ran the grinder over this, and it does look much better. We're still a little bit low right here as I thought earlier. These rust pinholes, I was trying to debate in my mind if I should weld a patch in right here or just weld the pinholes up. I'm gonna go ahead and try to weld the pinholes up first. It'll be a little faster, a little quicker. If it keeps blowing out on me and running away and burning up, then I'll have to give up and weld the patch in. But I believe I can weld them up if I just take my time and be careful, which I should be able to do. All right, don't be prepared for this to get a little bit frustrating, because this could be quite a bit aggravating. Also down here with my leg right here, I'm welding right here, so trying to keep from getting burnt best I can. This is not a quick and easy fix. Welding up these pinholes like this is a pain in the butt. As I said a while ago, if I was smart, I'd have patched it, but I just didn't feel like doing it. So that's round one pass with the welder. I got most of them pretty much, at least partly or mostly patched up, welded up. Now I got to grind it down. Trying not to over thin the metal around it, which is a real concern. I'll use various grinding methods. I got my little sander here that I've really taken a liking to. It's a little air sander. And of course a grinder, which I can't get to. Yeah, a regular grinder. And then my Zis wheel cutoff wheel turned on its side. Alright, I'm going to start out with a grinder and some 36. Like I said, be careful. You don't want to grind through the metal out here. It's already thin as it is. Don't want to make it worse any thinner. That's really the best I can do. Now, since this is a big low spot right here that I can't get out, I'm not going to try to grind all that out. I'm actually going to add some weld bead in there around it. That's not typically how you would do it, but it's not going to hurt anything. Especially down here in the bottom of this fender. And the same kind of up in here too as well. And we'll start trying to increase my heat a little bit on my welds now too, so it'll weld better. Won't be so cold. I got it ground down where I'm pretty happy with it. I think we're just a tad low, which is what I want, so I can put filler in it. I'm in no means trying to metal finish this. There's no way. There's a pinhole or two here still. I've shown this trick before. Take a flashlight and shine it behind your weld, and you'll see all the little pinholes that may be showing up. And that's especially important when you're welding up rust holes, because there's going to be pinholes when you're welding up rust holes. You just can't avoid it. When you work through them and get them all out best you can. Yeah, I see 1, 2. I see at least about 3. So yeah, let me get my welder hooked up. And now that I mentioned earlier, once you get all the rusty pinholes more or less welded up, you can turn your heat up and start welding with some decent penetration, and that will should weld up your pinholes in any kind of areas that were kind of thin. You don't want to get so hot you burn, start burning through again, but you can cut your heat up and actually kind of start welding a decent weld. When you first start welding up pinholes, you got to cut your heat down pretty low, and a lot of times that's really crappy welding. But it kind of takes that to start the process of welding those pinholes up. It's something that once you do it a few times, you'll understand. You'll develop a feel for it. It's like everything else. It just takes practice. Watching me do it is easy for you guys, but I'll make it look easy, I know, sometimes. But you got to get there and do it for yourself to learn and be able to do it on your own. And the way I try to weld pinholes, I say try, it doesn't always work out. I usually will clip my wire bead or my wire. Not every time, but most of the times. So I get the wire length that I'm comfortable welding with. And I'll put the wire lead right on the pinhole, either right before I put my helmet down or after if I can see it. Because with a pinhole, these things are small, they're tiny. So if you don't do that, you kind of guess where you stab the weld at. You're welding a lot of times around the pinhole and not in the exact spot where the pinhole wants to be. Because all you want to do when you're welding a pinhole is get the wire where it goes, pull the trigger for a little stitch weld, and get off. You're not trying to weld a whole bunch of extra bead and blob and build mess up. You're just trying to weld a pinhole up and get out. And a lot of times you have to use the flashlight to show what you're doing, to keep, so you can see where you got to weld. And sometimes you can do that while you're welding, and a lot of times you can't, because you just don't have You know, if you're like me, you got 2 hands, not 3. Boy. So anyway, there's one right there. And that didn't work good. And see, that's still cold. That was a very cold weld. So I probably missed that one. I'll hit it again, but I probably already missed it. So that's my fault. And this can be a tedious process too, so if you want, there's at least 2 more here I gotta find. I'm trying to talk and not. If you want, you can do the old put the bead in, you know, turn your face away or close your eyes and do that. And that definitely works. Just be careful of your eyes. You know, don't want to burn your eyes. That's not good. Okay. That's all people want. Yeah. I don't see more. That's my hole right here. Bring it down. I don't like that. Alright, I got the fender back on. I got it adjusted as good as I'm going to get it adjusted as far as the height and the in and out. So if you can see, here's the front edge of the fender that I pulled out when the cut line where I cut it's about right under here. So I pull this front out, and as you can see, that actually is about in plane with the rocker panel. Let me get a longer straight edge. So here's a yardstick straight edge coming down the rocker panel, and as you can see, that's pretty much in the front of the fender is actually in a little bit, but it's so small I'm not gonna really worry about it. But that's basically in plane with the rocker. It's got a big sunk in spot right here. Kind of got to formulate a plan here to fix this. What I was thinking about doing, and I'm still thinking about doing, is I've got a big snatch bar, and the inner fender support stops. Come on, stops right here. So I'm thinking about getting that big snatch bar and giving a big snatch right here on that inner fender support, hoping it'll twist it out some. What's probably going to happen is it bends my inner fender support back in here where all this bolts together. Probably going to wind up bending all that mess, and I don't want to do that. But I can at least try it. Alright, here's my big snatch bar. I've shown using this before in some of my videos, but I don't know if I ever actually posted any of that footage. This is I don't know what pound it is, but it's a large snatch bar. In a collision repair shop, you have to have one of these because you're moving a lot of stuff, you know, heavy stuff, and it takes a lot of force and oomph and all that mess. So anyway, this is not going to be in most of your guys' toolkit, but it sure is handy when you need it for things. So we'll just see. This thing right here will move some metal quick. Yeah. So we're just gonna take it easy and see what happens. And it may do nothing. I don't know. We'll see. Well, it'll do something. It just could be more bad than good. figured. Just pull the bottom out. It bent the inner bracing in here more than I wanted, which is not what I wanted it to do, and I was afraid it would. That inner bracing in there is not very strong. See, I'll pull my fender out nearly 1/8 of an inch. Let me give it another pull or two, just because I hate giving up. I pulled on it hard and I bent my inner bracing. I'm gonna have to get the fender off and bend that support bracing back together. That's a shame, but I knew that was going to happen. I just knew it was going to happen. It was just going to happen. But I think I straightened this area here some. It's not as nearly as cupped in as it was. I kind of have my marching orders now. So I can pull the fender back off now. We can work this bottom here some more off the truck, which would be a lot easier. And I gotta say, like I said, I gotta fix that inner bracket now where I bit the snot out of it. Keep in mind there are shims down here at this anchor point. So I just pull the bracket out. You know, I could pull the shims out and it would fit. I'm gonna push it. I'm gonna tap it back in. I bent it out really bad. So I mean, it's a piece of 16 gauge. It's not weak, but it's certainly not braced up and anchored to be unbendable. You can definitely bend it. And I just bent the snot out of it with that snatch bar. So I put it back in place. With the shims I have for adjustment, we're good to go. I just wanted to put it back where it was. Alright, back over here on the work table. You should be able to tell, here's a straight edge. See, we're straight now across. This is the area that I had pulled out, and of course the back is the back. So you can see we're straight across the roll, kind of the roll in the fender. So I did a good thing. So if you don't know, I'm on one hand. Here's that inner fender brace we're talking about. So I put the snatch bar right here. You can even see the impact strike marks. I put it right there and pulled out, and I twisted this brace. I've only got two hands, but I twisted the brace that way, you know, towards the wall. And that pulled that big low spot, which was right here, pulled it up and out this way. You follow me, you know what I'm talking about. You can see it's a little pooched up right here. I can drive that down, and now we have basically a dent right here, and I have access to that from the back side. Luckily there's no brace, so I got full access to metal work that out, and then I've got access to hammer this down. Before I do anything, here's where I originally cut the fender apart to pull the front forward. It's possible I didn't need to do that, but I did it, so it's done. So I've got to weld that back together, and you can see the gap, how much, maybe not a 16th, but at least almost a 16th that I widened. You know, when I pull this up, that stretched out. If I hadn't cut that, it probably wouldn't have moved, not nearly that easily. The bottom being all hacked up and bent in and bent, that's why I did that. You know, it worked. I did it and it's done and it worked. So now what I want to do before I do anything bodywork wise, I got to weld this gap back together so the fender can't collapse, because that's all your strength in that bottom flange right there. And if I was smart, I'd put a piece in the back as a brace. But the inner fender bracket stops at that cut line. So between me welding the gap up and maybe running some bead over to the inner brace on the back side, I think I'll be all right. I gotta watch my heat here because this metal is awful thin, so it's gonna probably blow out some. And again, I got the fender back in the floor so I can weld flat. It's just so much easier to weld that way. Alright, let's see what we can do here. You need enough heat to weld and get good penetration, but not so much you burn it up, obviously. Now there's a knot right here. The little high spot I showed you a while ago, that's a knot right there. And if I weld that knot up now, it's going to be damn near impossible to drive it down. So I'm not going to weld that far over. I'm just going to weld this like outer ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch to get this flange, the strength back in the flange, and worry about that knot later. Alright, now that we got the flange back together, we can weld this front together. And be sure when you're welding areas like this, like when you got a place that's split and you're welding it together, clamp it or something so it can't move. Because if you don't, when the welding, especially with a MIG, you weld it, it's going to shrink and contract on you. I'm also going to pull out just a little bit on the front this way to put some tension on it, so when it does shrink a little bit and pulls in, it should be about right. Take a pair of vice grips. Take a pair of vice grips and clamp it good, so hopefully it won't move back on the spring back. Another good use of these spoons sometimes, you can use them like little dollies in little places. Like I can put it right in there for a dolly in that little area. That's also taking care of that mountain I was talking about. So I feel better about that already. Still not going to weld it up yet, but I am working it down. Alright, I ground that down. Let me hammer and dolly on it a little bit. I still got this sunk in spot right here to deal with, but I'm finishing this first. I'm almost where I start welding these snatch holes. Snatch holes? No, bad cooks are bad. I'm almost where I can start welding up these holes I drilled for the snatch bar. But I'm not going to do that just yet. And I'm just about getting there. Alright, I got a few more holes here to weld up now. So let me weld them right quick. I believe I got it for now. Good enough. Alright, that's that bottom flange pretty much done. As I said, this is not a metal finishing project. And this is way better than it was when I started. Absolutely. 500%, well, way better. Alright. As I said, I'm not going to weld these holes up yet. Next thing I'm going to do is get the fender back up there on the table and try to work this dent out. And we'll be getting close to being done by that time. So I've got this thin dolly I use to get in tight places. Should be able to get right back up in here. Yep. And since I'm sticking my hand inside of that metal channel, you know, put a glove on, people. Don't be afraid to wear gloves. Keeps from beating your hands all up. I mean, if you're concerned about that thing, and I am. So I'm going to use a straight edge here to kind of help me. It's obvious if I look at it, but the straight edge helps. Just another tool to help you. So let's see what we can do here. Now what I'm doing, I'm taking the dolly and I'm pushing up on this area right above the bend, hoping this will kind of lift up and that'll go under. As I told you, metal reacts. You know, one area moves, the other area around, the areas around it are going to move too. So you kind of got to keep that in mind. Alright, I definitely moved it some. Also, as I said yesterday, when this panel was cut up, when I had it sliced apart and it had the rust in it, and I had the hole or the place where it split, all this metal is loosey-goosey moving around. So now that I've got things welded back together and put strength back in there, I can really start moving stuff around. Now one thing I did do, I just split it where the metal is thin down there. And that happens. You got to be careful with that kind of thing. So now you can see with the straight edge, we're good and straight all the way up through here, except for the dent right there. This down here now is good and flat till we get right here on this bottom, and that's where I welded. I can grind a little bit of that down, but that's the very bottom flange. That might have not even been straight from the factory, who knows? And that's down there where nobody, including me, is going to see it. And I may actually be able to bring this flange down out this way a little bit. Once again, I forgot to press the button. I'm sitting here working this dent out, telling you all about what I'm doing and everything. Damn camera's not running. So I will explain what I just did that you didn't get to see because I'm a moron. So I went and got a sandbag to use as a weight to hold this fender down so it don't bounce on me. Then I worked this low spot, this dent here. Started out with a curved hammer, working it from the inside with a hammer and dolly. Not really stretching, just light taps to move that metal out because you know it was a big dent, so I'm trying to drive it out, but I don't want to stretch. And then once I got that to where I like it, it was still a little bit low in the front, so I used this hammer, this face of the hammer, to drive the metal down. I could have used a pick hammer, but in this case I used this. It worked good. Then I came back and planished it some more. Very lightly like that. So I've got a crease that's right here. I'll show you in a minute. From where when I dented this panel, when I pulled this panel out and made it move, it put a crease in it right there. And it's still there. So I gotta fix that. And since the crease now is on the outside, it's pushed out. See, this dent was pushed in, the crease was pushed out. And that's real common in collision repair and dents and stuff, that metal moves that way. So let me turn the fender back over. Here's where I fixed that dent, right here, where I drove it up and planished it down. The crease, there's a crease right here. You may not be able to see the light line. There's a crease right there. There's a crease right there. You can kind of see them, but you really can't. But you certainly can feel them. If you were here, you could feel them and you'd know it's there. I got to work that crease down. And I got a feeling I'm not going to be able to planish that out. In other words, to get it where I don't have to, you know, filler, basically metal finish it. Now I'm going to use my flat hammer because the curve is just the way, and I'm hammering on the outside of the curve. I'm hammering. I got the flat side of the dolly on the back of the fender, so I have a gap here that gives the metal room to move down without actually hitting the face of the dolly. Just something I do. That helps for sure. Alright, we still got a high spot. We still got a crease. So a lot of times on a crease, I will take my pick hammer and just work the crease down. I want to get that crease just low enough that a little bit of skim coat of filler will go in there. Now again, I'm not metal finishing this thing. I'm not trying to metal finish it. And these are just light little taps. Don't even have to use a dolly. Just little light taps. Pick hammer can also shrink metal once you start. If you start, making harder hits, and you make an indentation. Everywhere you make an indentation, it is a little shrink because the metal gathers up around that point. You got to be hitting pretty hard to do that, and I'm not doing that. But a bunch of these in little succession, around each other, can shrink metal a small amount. It's not a lot, but it's a little. Hit it a little harder. That is really coming together. All right, I'm gonna flip this over and hit this area here one more time. It could be raised up just a little bit, right along down in here. Right in here. So I'm going to work this down just a little bit. And this is also some more light planishing, which is not a bad thing. Right here. I think we're in good shape. Still got a little wrinkle I'm not real happy with right here. It's very minute, but filler will take care of it. It's hard to get to because it's right starting in the edge of that inner brace, which is right in here. I might could get to it a little. And again, I'm nitpicking now. I'm splitting hairs. I can't help it. It's just something I do. I can't help it. The dent repair, quote unquote, is done. Let me check it before I bring you over here. Yeah, we're good. I mean, the light line looks good. There's the crease right there that we put back into it. That was the big horseshoe before. You can see it's good and straight all the way down to about here, and this is just a little low, in other words pushed up, but that's that lower flange the wheelhouse bolts on right here, so I'm sure that's fine. It'll be alright. From here up we're good. There's no big high mountains or pooched up spots, so I like it. We're in good shape. So now I got to weld the holes up and grind that down, and that can either be easy or a pain in the butt. These should be pretty easy. We're on the curved area here, so it's not like we're in the middle of a flat panel where it's going to just run away from me. I do need to weld these two up, which could be a little problematic, but these down here shouldn't be any problem, and neither should these two. So I got to weld those up, and I'll grind them down. We'll come back and do some final adjustments, hammering and dollying, planishing, if you want to call it that. And this repair will be done. Just to show it being done, I'm gonna put the snatch bar in this little dent right here. And in case you've never seen this before, you just, like I said, you got a stud, screw, thread it into your hole, and then you pull the hammer, and it does its work. On sheet metal, most of the time, it doesn't take a lot of force because sheet metal is thin. If you're working in an area that's really creased, or say it's 16 gauge or something, like a, you know, you're fixing a core support brace or something, or I'm just trying to think of examples. It can get a lot harder to do. If I was trying to pull it down in this crease here, it'd be a lot harder. But in these flat areas, it doesn't normally take much force. I barely even hit that. I hit it about twice, and it's right where I like it. Now I'm not trying to get this perfect. As I said, I want to leave it just a tick low for filler. I can't metal finish this. I got a brace back here. I can't get to it. I just want to get it close enough for filler. And again, you see me using this sandbag for a weight. That really helps on this kind of stuff. That's all that needed. Those are a tick high now, but when I weld them, they're going to shrink a little bit. I'm going to leave them like they are. I do want to tap, there's a little high ridge right through here. I do want to tap that down a little bit. I'm pulling out here, this way, and I'm knocking the ridge down. That's the way metal works. I mean, that's very slight, but I can feel it, so there's no sense waiting until I put filler in it and it shows up as a high spot. Go ahead and take it down now, and hopefully I won't have to do it later. Alright, let's weld these holes up. I'm back to wearing shorts. It's getting hot outside, so trying to keep my legs from getting burned. I know, you like to tell me. Don't let me forget to weld that crack before I quit here. I expect y'all to yell through the camera to tell me to weld these. Okay? Mr. Mackey says. Everybody has their own method for using a grinder. Some are just wrong. You know, cutting up on the edge and grinding grooves and all. You don't want to do all that. But once you learn your technique and get some finesse down, there's lots of ways to do this. I'm not saying any of them are right or any of them are wrong. This is how I do it. I've been doing it this way for a long time, and I've gotten good at it. Not trying to be an ass here, but that's just the way it is. Some metal shaper guys will tell me I'm doing it wrong. Okay, fine. But this is how I do it, and it works for me. So that's just that. Again, I'm nitpicking now and splitting hairs. It is in excellent shape for a light skim coat of filler, which is what I wanted. I feel bad that I didn't take an overall picture before I started. When I started just shooting the video for this, I had already drilled the holes here to pot. That big horseshoe, if you remember, that big horseshoe crease was right up in here. Well, it wasn't that high up, but it was. So I feel bad I didn't take a picture of it before I started. Of course, the dark spots you see are just the low spots where the flange has still got some bobbles in it. This lower flange does not have to be perfect. I'd have to work long and hard to get that out, and really I can't, again, without taking this inner panel out, because that's welds. That's where the inner panel, that inner brace welds all back up in here. So those weren't perfect from the factory anyway, and I'm not trying to make them perfect. So anyway, I'm getting off topic here. This little light line here bugs me, and I'm going to see it when I edit the video, and it's going to look like shit to me. But I know it's just a light little waver that filler is going to fix right up. So I have to learn to get past that. See, if I move, if I pick my camera angles just right, see, that goes away and you don't see it now. So anyway, I'm not trying to rant and rave here. I'm just saying this is the best I could do under the conditions I was in. It's going to work out fine. A little coat of filler, it's going to be great. Nobody's ever going to notice it. So anyway, that repair is done. Alright, so that's it for the video. This repair is done. It's ready for epoxy primer. I've still got to do the metal prep, the OSPO on the fender, on all the inner areas where it was all rusty. It's been sandblasted, but I'm still going to treat it with OSPO. So I got to do all that, and I'll get it ready to prime. And as it looks now, I'm not going to show putting the epoxy primer on it. You've seen that. You know what it looks like. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I taught you something. This is the first, I think, I'm trying to remember back, I think this is the first actual dent repair video on my channel, or at least the first one on this truck. Well, that's probably not true. It's the first collision repair type dent, I'm pretty sure, where I had to use a snatch bar and drill holes and booger hooks and beat a crease down, all that good stuff. That's collision repair 101 right there. Little ripples and little dings and little dents. That's collision repair and body work, but it's not like fixing a panel that's been beat up or crushed or bent in or whatever. This something had hit the bottom of this fender, and I don't remember when it was. It was a long time ago. Something had hit the bottom of this fender and crushed, well, not so much crushed, pushed the bottom of it up, made that big horseshoe dent in it, and the big half moon dent, and creased it pretty hard. So to get that out, that took some body work type work skills, collision repair type skills. You're just not going to sit there and hit that with a hammer and beat it back out and get it done. You got to kind of know what to do and where to do it. So anyway, I'm not trying to sound like a know-it-all or something. I'm just trying to show you what I did and how I did it, and what it kind of takes to make that kind of repair. You know, you got to kind of know how to do it, what to do. So anyway, hope you got something out of it. But that's it for the video. So again, thanks for being here. Oh, still trying to grow the channel. You know, please share the video around if you like it. If you like what I'm doing, you like the channel, you know, share it around. Trying to grow my channel. I can't do it without you guys' help, or gals, without you folks' help. So you know, I'm asking for your help. Help me help a brother out. So anyhow, thanks for being here. Be sure and do all the YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, share it around, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Y'all come back now, you hear? Happy Fix a Dent Day, y'all. Bye.